You're listening to a very special episode of the Sleep Whisperer podcast. Dr. Manvir Bhatia is a senior neurologist and sleep specialist with over 25 years of experience. She's the director of the Neurology Sleep Center, New Delhi. She's currently the vice president of the Indian Society of Sleep Research and the author of the book Sleep Solutions, India's first non-fiction book on sleep. Recently, she has been awarded with Indira Gandhi Mahila Ratan Award and also awarded by the American Association of Physicians of Indian Origin at Boston for extraordinary contribution in sleep medicine for the year 2017. She has conducted awareness programs on sleep disorders, celebrated World Sleep Day for over 10 years. In a world where we tend to ignore forgetfulness and brain fog, can these general symptoms of memory be clues towards something deeper? What is memory and how does it differ in short term and long term? How does memory impact your life? Why must we not ignore challenges with memory? This is all that we discuss in this episode. We're in a global crisis with COVID-19. If you've lost someone close to you in this past year, my heart goes out to you. The coronavirus and the pandemic have increased sleep challenges several times over due to the high state of stress and anxiety amidst all of us. If there is one thing that it shows us, it is that we're all the same within and that we must come together in as many ways as possible. We also brought focus to sleep in our podcast as these unprecedented times have shifted the balance in our very ecosystems. If there is a way that you can have us support you in terms of specific guests or topics that you'd like to, send me a note on deepa@fight2thrive.com and I'll do my very best to bring it to you. Let's hold a few seconds of silence in prayer for all the lost souls through COVID-19. Welcome to the Sleep Whisperer podcast. I'm your host, Deepa. Join me and my many expert guests and medical professionals from the cutting-edge science of functional medicine of the West and ancient wisdom of the East. Learn all about how to discover your root causes of poor sleep and understand the proper tools and techniques to end your confusion and begin getting a good night's sleep. It's time to regain hope and begin your sleep journey with the Sleep Whisperer podcast. Dr. Bhatia, such a pleasure to have you on the Sleep Whisperer podcast, and I know I've been wanting you ever since I came across you quite a while ago, and we've been having these informal discussions before the actual episode. Neurology is a fascinating field. I think we really need a whole lot more people like you out there, not just, and you have a special focus on sleep as well. But what brought you to neurology? Why neurology?
Yeah, it's interesting. Thank you, Deepa. And I've also been following your podcasts, and amazing that you start with a simple point but go right in and a lot of depth. So they have been very educative and informative, if I may say. What got me to neurology, actually, when people ask these questions, I think sometimes that gives you a lot of time to and for some reason not really so deeply about it. Training, there was a time in between that, you know, I started my family and had a little break in the career, etc., but then decided to go back to education. So in medicine, if I look at all the fields, gastroenterology, cardiology, I did a lot of work with cancer, which was I found depressing. So for that, I just needed to get out immediately. Nephrology, etc. I think the brain just became, or the nervous system was a very fascinating topic, a field. And out of all those fields, when I really got into it, let's say back in late 80s, there was not so much known about it. Imaging had just come up, functional imaging was really not there. So it was a very, very big mystery. And I think if I now understand myself a better, I do have a very strong lean or tendency for an inquisitive mind to understand deeply about things. And this was like Pandora's box, which I don't think we knew much about the nervous system at all.
And I know you have an inquisitive mind, doctor, because even with the little podcast discussions that we have, you have so many more questions to add about everything. And it's always nice to get fresh insight from anything that we talk about. But I know that a lot of people today, just all of us, in fact, we have some sort of we're talking about memory and sleep, but we all struggle with some simple forms of challenges like forgetting our keys, brain fog, inability to focus. And I know a lot of people just ignore it and just put it down to this is how I am. But do simple symptoms like this actually point towards something going on in terms of, I don't know, inflammation or deficiency, nutrient deficiencies for brain health, anything? Are these signs of something deeper? Should we be digging deeper if we have these very often?
So I think you're right. All of us now are going through this phase of forgetfulness for minor things. Now, what are these minor things? How much do they disturb you? How often do they occur? How much does it affect your day to day life and your productivity? So, I think that's what we need to keep in mind. Um, do we forget names once in a while? And then, if you just kind of concentrate, does it come back? Then possibly we do know, and then we'll come back to it a little bit later, that this recall process is very complicated,
Mm.
and it requires like a full machinery coming turning on in the brain, and very quick, like in microseconds, and it has to be, the response has to happen. So it's something called as a processing. It's like a computer turns on and a processor starts off.
Mm.
So that processing, I had a conversation with a very senior cognitive neuroscientist, and I was asking him the same question, and he said the processor becomes a little slow as
Mm.
we are aging. And the aging, for the nervous system starts, very early. That's one part. And I think the other thing that we need to understand is, so what is it that can slow down the processing further, and what is it that can help to speed up the processing?
Right.
So coming back to your question, that should it bother us or not, it all depends on the enormity of the situation, how often, how many things in a day, how often,
Mm.
like if I'm going to do my work, or if I'm talking to you and I forget what I'm going to say,
Mm.
that is alarming. But yes, if a person I've met about 5 years ago and I come across them and I can't remember their name, maybe I should not get too disturbed about it.
Yeah, that's a beautiful way that you broke it down. And I know, doctor, that when I've had some night of terrible sleep for some reason, I actually do this, what you mentioned. I'll be speaking to somebody and I forget what was I going to say. And I suppose in that case, if it's occasional, it's not alarming. But then there are also the challenges that people face because they're struggling with recurrent poor sleep, and then that can also impact brain health so negatively, which is why I love the fact that you have focus on both neurology and sleep science. But what exactly is memory? Now, when we say memory, what is it?
Yeah, so I think in simple way to put it is that memory is what makes each one of us.
Mm.
So if we were to look at our bank that we have in our brain, um, all our past and present, and it's what makes each one of us unique in a way. So your memories and my memories are very different. So it's a process. In other scientifically, it's a process that there is numerous steps involved, and that is why over the years it has got into a lot of subdivisions, categorization on different types. So one simple way to say is short term memory and long term memory, or recent memory and remote memory. But what happens in a memory, so if we were to think a little bit and go close your eyes for a few seconds, think of an experience that kind of brings a smile to your face.
Mm.
So that experience is all unique to us. It could be a vacation. Now, when you go a little deeper, where was it? What was what did your eyes see at that moment? Did you smell something? Who were you with, your companions? What was the emotion that you had that brought a smile? So that we say it's a memory, but you see how complex it is. It's broken up into numerous sensations. So these sensations are what we feel. They go into one area of the brain, which is more like the thalamus. From there, they travel into the other area of the brain, which is the temporal lobes. And from there, they kind of get further enhanced or stored in different areas. And once that circuits kind of keep on going on and on, they get reinforced. So example of that is that if you keep looking at the pictures of that event or your vacation, that somehow does what is called as a potentiation. More and more fibers join together, and the circuit becomes stronger and stronger. It's the term which is used often, is that those which fire together wire together. So we make it strong memory, and that's how things stick. Then when we so it is input, there is a storage, and there is a further storage into a hard disk, and then when we are asked to talk about it, we retrieve, or what is called as a recall.
Mm.
It's a very complex process. So that's a long term. Short term is that, what did I have for breakfast today? Can I remember? What day of the week? What did I do in the morning, etc. So people can have issues with long term or with short term. They can have issues with receiving information. I had a patient just yesterday. The son said that, told her something in the first floor. By the time she comes to the ground floor, she's forgotten what was said.
Mm.
Or, they eat a meal, worst scenario, they can't remember whether they've eaten, then they want to eat again.
Mm.
So there are huge, big dimensions of this problem that can happen. So memory is, in simple words, short term, recent, remote, and different mechanisms are in place. We also can divide memory into things like facts, and so what is it that we remember and how we do things. So those are something called as the semantic and procedural. But basically, like if you learn how to drive a bicycle, you learn how to drive a car, or you learn swimming. So those are things that are learned as tasks. So those are different areas of the brain.
And can you
Versus
ever forget those, doctor? Those kind of
those
skills?
usually stick for much longer.
Mm.
But versus this, what you said, we forget a name. So somebody said, what year did India get independence? Who was the first prime minister? So those are facts. So facts, sometimes one forgets earlier. I just yesterday met a friend. She said her daughter played golf after about 15 years, but was still able to do it well.
Mm.
Or somebody can play. So some patients have forgotten everything, but they can play like a musical instrument. So those are tasks which are at a different center. So brain is still now, I think, a very complex process.
Yes.
So we don't have individual. Another concept which has come over the years is the networks. Is that there is no one area. Everything works together to produce this whole picture, and that's how then we can recall.
Oh, that's beautiful, because typically you keep hearing science about each part of the brain, and
Center.
what you're talking about is something like the functional medicine approach of how
Yeah.
systems are connected. And similarly, you're saying they are not in isolation, even in the brain, and everything is in. But what was really I took from that was you mentioned that someone can forget that they ate and then therefore they eat again. I mean, these kind of things can be impactful in other areas if these simple memories are confused or forgotten. And I also wanted to ask you quickly before we move on, that I found so often that people hold on to traumatic memories and adverse memories, and then it's much harder for them to let go of that, even though those are not memories that help or serve you in any way. And sometimes the better memories actually don't seem to be there. So is there a reason why
Yeah.
traumatic memories last?
You're very right. So if you were given a task to remember the worst part of that you ever can remember, your recall will be much faster.
Hmm.
Something which upset you or what was terrible. And sometimes when you are asked that remember the best part of that you can think about in your life that happened, you'll take much longer.
Yes.
So this is a well-known process. I mean, in psychology, it is known that the brain is wired to think and remember the negatives. So it's actually a greater task and a harder effort to keep thinking of the positive. So it's a natural, inherent process that the negatives stick much longer. So yes, you're right, and this is somehow it's sad, but that's how it is, and that's all the more reason we need to make an effort to remember the positives.
So how exactly, doctor? I would like to spend few minutes here, because see, there's so many people struggling with sleep because of traumatic experiences, abuse, so many things. And is there, now that you've said that there is a science that we actually have trouble getting rid of those more than the positive ones, is there certain tools that we can use? I know you're speaking about positivity, but some
How?
actual practices where we can let go of these trauma or
I'm
adverse.
just, yeah, that's wonderful. I'm just going to go a little back to
Sure.
share with you what is it that happens in the brain during sleep only for the memory process. So I'm not talking about sleep for the cardiovascular system,
Okay.
the gastrointestinal, nothing. We'll
Yes,
talk
yes.
only what is happening, which is important and relevant to the memory. So it is a very beautiful analogy that I read, that imagine it's like, suppose it's like a garden which is full of flowers, but there will be weeds which will be growing. So, which is some junk which accumulates in the brain, and that needs to be taken out. So, in very simple terms, that is what happens in sleep or during sleep.
Hmm.
So, how it happens is, I just want to make people understand so that everybody takes home this message, the value of good sleep. Because even now, I get people who say that sleep, I think, is a waste of time. I think I should sleep only 5 hours. Yesterday, I saw a person who said he's wanting to sleep only 5 hours because beyond that, he feels it's not required, and he's not productive. So that's a separate story. So what happens to the brain is that it's flushed with a fluid kind of at night. So the brain is encased or coated with this fluid, which is called as cerebrospinal fluid. But very interesting, in the last few decades, it's been seen that this fluid kind of gushes in at night almost double or almost 3 times the flow than during the day. And it removes the junk or the bad proteins which can accumulate. So in patients with Alzheimer's dementia, we have accumulation of a substance called as amyloid.
Mm.
And this amyloid is a junk which needs to be cleared repeatedly. So in sleep or while we are sleeping, this amyloid gets cleared off in a natural process. So over the years, if you cut your sleep because of any reason, whether it is sleep apnea or insomnia or just habitual lifestyle, you will allow amyloid to accumulate.
Mm.
And it accumulates, it will damage the brain. So that's a very uh, good research. In the last few years, numerous papers have come on this. They have shown that even one night of a poor sleep can cause changes in your brain proteins. So, in other words, at any age, if you restrict your sleep, you will allow these proteins to accumulate, and that is a junk. So, that is one part of the memory reinforcement or which can happen in sleep. Second is that there is during slow wave sleep, these memories which we were talking about, which we receive information, it's been seen that they get stored and consolidated.
Mm.
So there is what is called as it's the other word people use is like cementing. So you whitewash something, but if you kind of just don't cement it properly, so that consolidation has to happen. So those children who stay awake the whole night, or people who are working stay awake the whole night, and morning they go for a meeting or an exam and feel I am not able to produce something, the brain has gone blank. It's because nothing got consolidated. You just kept
Mm.
reading and reading. So consolidation, weeding out the junk, and the third is the emotional attachment to the memory.
Mm.
So we have some, like you said, everybody goes through some events or something, and you have a emotion attached to it that needs to be regulated and needs to be dealt with, and that happens during REM sleep. So if that doesn't is not good in quantity and quality, that will always remain as a sitting sore, in our system, and we will always be able to recall with a very bad input. So different areas, like the amygdala is the one which is for anger and emotion. So it's been seen that lack of sleep, this little structure is very active all the time. So it makes people very irritable, very angry. So that's a separate thing about emotions. But generally, so the memory, uh, let's say in a good during a good night, different stages of the sleep, stage 2, slow wave, REM, all have very important um, foundations for storage, removal of junk, and dealing with emotions.
Mm. And doctor, just tell me quickly whether is it, I know you spoke about night. Do you feel that if somebody says I'm a night owl, I need to work all night and I sleep all day, do you feel that if they're consistently doing that, even if they're getting good sleep during the day, is there a difference in how this plays out?
Very important question, because I think a large proportion of the generation wants to do this.
Yes.
Some are inherently by a genetic predisposition, a night owl or a morning lark. But some of us have made ourselves into night owls
Mm.
by just our lifestyle.
Yes.
So, I mean, that's another one point. But what you have brought out is what the recent research has shown. So, this process of clearing the brain or a garbage cleaning at night is with a system called as a G lymphatic system.
Mm.
So, it's been seen that this G lymphatic system is very much linked with the circadian system. So, in
Mm.
short, we do need the night sleep to remove the junk. The day sleep will not remove the junk. So, you think you are catching up on sleep.
Yes.
But that catch-up sleep is never equivalent to the night sleep, because there are a lot of other things which happen at night. Just it's not just the sleep and sleep. It's a lot of other hormones, etc., which need to peak at night, which improve or take care of your health on the whole.
I'm so happy that you said that, doctor, because I ask so many people this, and sometimes they do say it's fine as long as they get enough sleep. But I personally have believed that this night sleep is very
Yeah,
different. So I'm so
yeah, we need
happy to
a
hear
good
you
night's
say.
sleep.
So could you share a little bit about what are some tools we can use to help us get past adverse memories, traumatic memories?
So, what are the things which can help the memory process as such? So it's not, so one, of course, because I'm talking about sleep, so ensure healthy sleep.
Hmm.
So there is this big uh, discussions these days about what is healthy sleep. In just two lines, I will say it is the quantity, quality, and timing of sleep. It has three dimensions. Quantity is related to your age. We all have seen children. They might require, newborns will require maybe 18 hours of sleep, 20 hours of sleep. Toddlers require about 10, 11, 12 hours, and so on. And let's say an average adult needs somewhere between 7 to 8.5. It's a range. So find your sweet spot, as they say.
Hmm.
So healthy sleep, quality means that we get adequate amount of time in light sleep, deep sleep, REM sleep, etc. Timing is as far as possible. Stick to the timings with the sunlight and the sunset. But of course, we know with the light what we can do. The other thing is exercise. So good exercise has been shown to be one of the major factors where this brain plasticity can improve. That means you can improve your network, you can improve your synapses. So that's the exercise. The third, which people do read a lot about, is challenging your brain. So like you do muscle building, people are all into muscle building. So can we improve brain power, so as to say? So do something new, do something challenging. So age is no bar. Keep trying to learn something. Is it a language? Is it a skill? Whatever. You will put more of your brain reserve into the circulation, into the synapses, and you will gain much more. So challenge your brain. Then comes nutrition.
Mm-hmm.
So good food. Now, similar, like we take, say, good sleep. So what is good food? It has to be well balanced. Do not do eliminations. Do not do strict restrictions without proper guidance.
Yes.
Especially self-imposed, that I think I will not eat carbohydrates. I think I will not eat
Yes.
gluten. I will not eat non-veg. I will not eat, have milk products. So if it's required, but with a consultant.
Yes.
So there's simple things that, so basically living a productive life, and other thing is about stress and emotions. It's been seen that stress can hamper the connectivity, produces a lot of toxic chemicals in your body, which can impair memory, and depression. So depression, in fact, interferes with the memory so much that we have a term which is called as pseudodementia. That means they can almost, this fog is so bad, they cannot recall, they cannot remember. It has just shut down their brain system. So be happy, do your self-compassion, compassion for the others. All these little things will go a long way to improve you as a person and your memory.
And in fact, doctor, when you spoke about exercise, my mind instantly went to that fact that I spend about 10 to 15 minutes a day of my exercise upside down in headstand and handstand. And
A lot of
I
blood
think
flow.
I think I feel so revived. And in fact, if after a night of poor sleep, if you've had something which has prevented, not daily bad sleep, Just a session of upside downs can make you feel as if you've recharged yourself and you feel more mental clarity. So it's interesting you mentioned that, and it's very important. I think you made a very valid point about the self restrictive diets, because most of those diets which you spoke about, of someone removing animal protein or gluten or dairy, sometimes a practitioner may have a reason for doing that, but they usually advise short term as a way to get the body into a state of balance, and they themselves can create deficiencies if you
Yeah.
pull out large groups of foods.
Yeah,
So
so the
that was,
brain needs a lot of energy, so the
yes,
brain needs a lot of glucose for it to function. We need some B12 for the lining system. So a lot of things are needed. So we have to be clear and that we do not harm ourselves.
yes. And I'm so glad to hear you say that, doctor, also because I come across so many people who say they've been diagnosed with bipolar disorder or depression, but they've never been checked for B12 deficiency or something like that. And before doing that, they're prescribed strong
Medication.
medication, which can then put them into other challenges. So I think it's great to hear a renowned neurologist speak into these aspects of how nutrients also matter. So, in terms of sleep and memory, I know you spoke a lot already about how not having proper sleep impacts memory formation. Is there any area between sleep and memory that we missed?
Yeah, so I think we just didn't talk about the disorders. So we have a common disorder called obstructive sleep apnea, in
Yes.
which the feature is snoring and sleepiness during the day.
Mm,
These people have what is called as fragmented sleep. So this fragmented sleep interferes with their memory. So they come
mm,
forward and complain of forgetfulness, which can come in 30s, 40s, 50s. And because we are now able to do imaging to a very enhanced extent, we have seen that their areas of the brain involved with memory are kind of little shrinking. So we have now definite proof that certain sleep disorders, because of poor sleep, will affect memory.
mm,
About the reversibility, we are still going through that. Other feature is insomnia, which is very highly prevalent, has tripled the prevalence during this pandemic, and number of sleeping pills have being prescribed has gone up by about 5 or 10 times by all countries. So insomnia is poor sleep. In short, sleep is not adequate and has daytime consequences. These people also will start complaining about memory problems. So there is a
mm,
strong link. Then we have disorders which are pure memory disorders, like different types of dementias, etc. They also have memory problems. So the the disorders are very closely linked. So what is the cause and effect? We don't know. Are the associations very strong? And we do know the pathogenesis. So just to again reinforce that over the our lifespan, we do need to ensure that we take care of these measures, because we do not, then once you land up with dementia, it's very hard for things to go backwards.
yes.
So
Yes.
prevention is much more important than cure.
So if somebody was struggling with sleep, poor sleep and memory, not able to let go of trauma, what would you actually begin with for them?
We have these few basic rules, but we also now realize the lacunae or the deficiency of these basic rules, because we talk about something called as a personalized medicine.
Mm,
So not each rule apply can be applicable to everybody, but more or less they kind of have these guidelines which are simple to follow. One is a fixed bedtime and a wake up time. don't fluctuate it so much. In fact, some recent research has come that people who fluctuate this impact the different stages of their sleep and will have an impact on their cognitive function. So fix bedtime, wake up time, irrespective of weekdays and weekends.
Yes.
I'm seeing a few children these days and who say, how can you tell us to live our life like this? This is a life to party, that I sleep at 5 a.m. once in a week. So why should it be bad? So then I say, you choose. Now you choose what you want. You want to party till late, or do you want to be miserable in the day? So a fixed bedtime, wake up time. Caffeine has become part of our lives. Some people are actually taking it to get over a bad night. So they drink
Yes.
a couple of cups to the day. Then there are not only caffeine, there are energy drinks. People are having all sorts of energy drinks to feel pepped up. But I tell them that if you just get good sleep, you will be pepped up and energetic. So avoid the caffeine and the energy drinks. So caffeine, if it's really required, morning one is okay, but nothing after 12 noon. A regular exercise, we talked about the benefits of exercise, but it also consolidates memory, consolidates good sleep, improves synapses, etc. But no late night gyms. See, the problem is when we say these words like exercise, people are working out, doing extensive cardio, etc., at about 10 p.m., 11 p.m. So that
Yes.
will interfere with your night.
Yeah.
So these are the some things, and the last most important is what is it that you do last before bed, and that's what we call as a pre-bedtime routine. So people have over the years understood a lot about the morning routine. That this time I should wake up, this time I should do this, and 1 hour to my exercise, 15 minutes to myself, blah blah blah, etc. So we have to now get into the habit of developing a pre-bedtime routine, meaning say bye to your gadgets and screen,
Yes.
escort them out of the room, say good night, switch them off at a fixed certain time. If you want a hot shower, you have a hot shower that helps in sleep. Anything else that you like to do, you can have people have chamomile tea if your milk suits you, whatever, something like a outside food product which can induce a good quality sleep. Do some relaxing activity, reading, some deep breathing, and then have a time that you kind of wind down and put off the lights. I've started seeing a lot of patients with a lot of thoughts that they're not able to break the thought. So we call that it's a racing mind. They can't.
Yeah.
For that, it's like actually a separate thing we need to get into. But a simple thing could be journaling.
Yes.
So fix a time somewhere in the evening, 7, 8, 9 p.m. Sit down on a table, pencil and paper, pen and paper, and just write things down. So will it act immediately today if I do it? Will today it'll work? No. It'll work over a period of time and make it a habit. So habits are another thing that different parts of the brain are involved in habit forming. So once it becomes a habit, then that memory gets converted into a habit. So that's what we all have to work on, that for every little thing that we do, when you make it a habit, it will start becoming a part of you. So that's all in short. I think that fixed time, bedtime, caffeine to be avoided, regular exercise, screen times, no naps post 3 p.m., adequate sunlight in the day, and a good relaxing pre-bedtime routine, whatever suits you. Choose your own routine.
Beautiful, doctor. And what I really appreciate that you spoke about the late night gyms, which no one really talks about. And those gyms are also, they've got these very bright white lights,
And music.
fluorescent lights, and loud music, everything that is in what is called activating and
Activation.
stimulating. And no, I am so glad you brought that up, because so many people do that actually. And it is also really wonderful to see that you're integrating so many approaches into your neurological practice. So it's not just a route of medication. It's you're bringing people back to the awareness, mindfulness, simple coming back. And we spoke about bedtime routine. When we were children, there was always the routine of going to bed,
Right.
being tucked in,
Yeah.
having a story to read. And I really think even as adults, we should have some of
Something.
these
Yeah.
where we look forward to, settling into our bed. And is there anything that we miss, doctor? Because you've actually given us so much
No, I think
information.
just the word that stimulation, that's what the sympathetic system does to us. That's what anxiety does, that we are in this
Yes.
flight or fight mode, we are charged. So, yes, it is required for us to feel, get this push and try and do things. But towards the night, we need to activate our parasympathetic system. That can also be done with some pranayam, with some yogic techniques. Those, there's enough literature, science, mindfulness, meditation, whatever, that we activate our parasympathetic system, in which the heart rate will slow down, the brain activity will start slowing down, and sleep onset is better, and sleep continuity is better. So when we kind of measure sleep or talk about sleep, we say, how soon are you able to fall asleep when you lie in bed? And how many awakenings you have in the night? That means how disturbed is it? And you wake up, you need about 3 alarms. I have people who are putting 3, 3, 4, 4 alarms, or you just wake up before the alarm. So people often ask a question actually. So what is good sleep? So that sleep, which is adequate in duration, when you wake up without an alarm and you feel
Yes.
energetic and go to be on ready to go for the move. That's what I say is good sleep.
And also, though, sadly, doctor, that sometimes people are in jobs where earlier I had a job where I would have to leave my house at 4 in the morning.
Yeah.
So, I wouldn't wake up when my body naturally
Yes,
wanted
still.
me to. And I think if we have the opportunity and nothing like that to prevent it, we should all allow our body to just wake up
Yeah,
when it
you're right.
normally does.
I think that that's true. I mean, unfortunately, there are a lot of people who have to do, or say, cut down the sleep because of work. You may
Yes.
be driving 2 hours, you are coming back 2 hours. Where's the time for exercise, etc.?
Yeah.
It's very hard. It's very hard to make everything work together. But we need to figure out what is it that one can do best. Sometimes here people say that should I shift closer to my place of work because they are traveling 4 hours. And the other day, then somebody, I said, yes, you might have to, or because it's affecting your health now.
Yes.
There's no point we work and it affects us. What are we working for is to look after ourselves in a way. So that's a decision. It's a big decision. They're tough decisions, but in the space of whatever we can do, we should try and put things right. Like if you can switch off the Netflix at night or the video streams at night, try and do it at a certain fixed hours. That's a separate thing that people are not able to switch off. They can't cut that. And before you know it, you've crossed midnight.
Yes. And I think also when they are so sympathetically dominant, they feel like being awake and do. They feel that they can't just be. For them everything has to be do. So
Yeah,
sometimes people say, I can't sit still. I have to do
I think
something.
it's over the years we've lost that art of sitting still.
Yes, yes. And I learned so much from you today, doctor. Especially you clarified to me the difference between traumatic memories and happy memories so that people won't actually feel so bad as to why are they not able to release those memories.
Yeah.
Because sometimes people feel very troubled that why am I not able to forget about that. So that was something which you really brought out today, and lots of very practical tips. And more than anything, I want to appreciate seeing you as a neurologist practice with so many other forms of intervention apart from just a medicine or which is really very reassuring to hear. Before I let you go, Doctor, I'd like you to conclude our Sleep Whisperer mantra. If sleep is the new medicine, then how would you complete it for us?
I think everybody should be given it as an capsule, and it is a panacea, according to me.
Yes.
It forms the basic foundation of health, So we need to appreciate it, and I admire you for taking out time to introduce this podcasts in such a manner that it reaches more people, and we move towards a healthier and a happier world with good sleep as a background.
Thank you, Dr. Bhatia. Where can people go if they want to get more information about what you speak about, your articles?
So we have a website which is neurologysleepcenter.com. Email is info@neurologysleepcenter.com. We also have a YouTube channel in which I post and record most of the questions which are often asked by patients, that we kind of give their answers. We are also on Instagram, and we are also on Facebook and LinkedIn and Twitter as Neurology Sleep Center.
Wonderful, Doctor. And I'm sure if anyone has all these challenges we spoke about, memory, letting go of trauma, poor sleep, they must all reach out to you and get some help. Thank you for being here today. It was a pleasure having you. I hope we can have you back one day to speak about emotions and sleep, because you gave me some little clues and now I'm already fascinated by it.
Thank you again, Deepa. Wonderful talking to you, and I shall look forward to listening to more of your podcasts again. Thank you so much.
Hey everyone, I hope you enjoyed the show. Just a reminder that this podcast is for information purposes only. This is not a substitute for professional care by a doctor or otherwise qualified health professional. This information is provided on the understanding that it does not constitute medical or other professional advice or services. If you are looking for personal help on your health journey, do seek out a medical practitioner. Please do make your own healthcare decisions based upon your research and in partnership with your doctor or otherwise qualified healthcare professional. It is in no way intended as medical advice, as a substitute for medical counseling, or as treatment or cure for any particular health condition. Be sure to always work directly with a qualified health practitioner before making any changes to your diet or lifestyle that may feel out of your realm of comfort or understanding. If you are looking for an allied functional medicine practitioner, do seek out more information on www.phytothrive.com or www.sleepwhisperer.pro. It is important that you have someone who is qualified and understands your health personally in order to provide adequate care, especially when it comes to chronic health conditions.